Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Exact Track 4D radar showing snow to the west and rain to the south of us. But the more immediate concern will be the wind, and it tops our news at 6 o'clock. Some inconvenient weather looming for tonight and tomorrow.
Brian Sherman in for Kim Adams with forewarned weather. First up, Brian, a wind advisory for part of the viewing area.
Yeah, that's right, Devin and Kimberly. Our northern counties under that wind advisory from 10 o'clock tonight until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Genesee, Lapeer, St. Clair, and Sanilac counties. Wind gusts could exceed 45 to possibly 50 miles an hour in our northern tier of counties overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. We'll combine that with a lakeshore flood advisory for Sanilac and St. Clair counties for the same time frame, as those areas could see some minor flooding along the lakeshore due to the winds and rain tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Still hanging on to some of that cloud cover. Tower cam from Windsor looking across the river into downtown Detroit. Most everyone into the mid to low 30s heading into 6 o'clock. 35 right now here in Detroit, 34 in Howell, 32 right now in Pontiac, and checking in at 38 over in Adrian. Sustained winds anywhere from 15 to closing in on 20 miles an hour as the rain also is heading our way. Now starting to move in from Grand Rapids down toward Kalamazoo and Coldwater. So expect those clouds to increase as we head throughout the evening and into the overnight hours tonight. Light rain or drizzle is possible after 8 o'clock, with temperatures stabilizing into the mid 30s for everybody before we get that healthy dose of rainfall overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning to go with those strong wind gusts. We'll talk more about that and some much colder changes on the way. Your complete forewarned forecast coming up in just a few minutes. And with rain on the way, now is the time to download that forewarned weather app. Exact Track 4D, Future Track, and weather alerts all in the palm of your hand. You can find it in your favorite app store. Just search WDIV.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Having a car stolen is a major inconvenience for anyone, but to a single parent who relies on that vehicle to see their kids and get to work, well, that can be life-changing.
And that is exactly the situation for a father of 5 in Lincoln Park. Jason Colthorpe working this story that runs deeper than just car theft, right?
Oh, 100%, guys. There could be a lot of folks finding themselves in this spot because of increasing car thefts, especially the brand owned by this man, a Navy veteran who needs to drive 20 minutes to work.
Brandon Deepenhorst woke up Tuesday morning to his daughter telling him their car was missing from in front of their home in Lincoln Park. And it's much more than just an inconvenience for this single dad of 5.
I have sole custody of my oldest two. They live with me 24/7. My 2 older boys live in Defiance, Ohio. I get them every weekend. I meet her halfway. I have to be able to get there to get them. Not seeing my boys is not an option for any of us. My boys and I are so close that not seeing them would crush all of us.
The car was insured, but that won't fix everything.
Insurance, yeah, they might cover the rest of my loan, but I can't go get a new car after that. I don't have the credit right now.
Brandon had a blue Kia Sorento, looked a lot like this one, and his Kia certainly is not the only one disappearing around these parts.
Kia and high-end thefts been huge citywide and statewide and nationwide.
Detroit Police Commander Eric Decker says auto thefts are up 25% this year, and 10 to 12% of that can directly be attributed to viral videos on social media like these.
Something came out on Facebook or TikTok, basically how to steal a Kia, basically showed everybody how to steal one in, a couple seconds.
Brandon suspects the thieves are just kids doing dumb things, but he doesn't have time for it.
I don't really think they understand how much they're hurting people, how much they're hurting families.
Yeah, and unfortunately, police not really any leads on this yet. Inside the car, by the way, was one of his kids' car seats and his daughter's tablet for school, plus a couple things you can't put a price on, like his whistle that he used when he was coaching his kids' teams and a rosary that was blessed by the Pope. Guys.
Highland Park Police investigating a deadly shooting in the parking lot of a local auto supplier. It happened this morning at the Faurecia plant on Oakland Park Boulevard near I-75 in the Davison. We're told there was some kind of fight inside the plant between two men, and the fight continued into the parking lot. A 40-year-old was shot and killed. A 29-year-old was taken into custody. Wayne County prosecutors will now determine if charges will be filed.
Federal Reserve is raising interest rates again, but this time it is a smaller hike than those that have preceded it. Fed raising the interest rate by 0.5 point. It's less than its 4 previous 3/4 point hikes. It comes as inflation is showing signs of easing, but it does also indicate the fight is not over yet. It'll likely increase the cost of loans. Officials expect to keep rates higher through next year with no reductions, likely, according to many analysts, until 2024. This is the 7th rate hike this year.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer is already getting ready for when the Democratic Party takes control of the Michigan legislature. There are a number of items on the to-do list, such as changing the right-to-work law and eliminating the state's pension tax. Tonight, Local 4's business editor Rod Maloney is live with a look at what it all means. Rod.
Yeah, you know, Kimberly, this falls under the category of every little bit helps, right? It was back during the Snyder administration that the governor decided he didn't think the tax carve-outs for anybody were fair. But Governor Gretchen Whitmer is of a differing opinion, and she thinks that the seniors who are on pensions need to have this money in their pockets. Deborah Clark of Hazel Park bought a few items at the grocery store today, but it took a sizable bite out of her budget.
Everything is overpriced.
And she's on retirement's doorstep.
January.
And you're looking forward to a small pension?
Yes.
What do you think about the state income tax on that pension?
They need to stop that tax.
The governor's office today saying in a statement, quote, "We are currently working with the incoming leaders on a legislative agenda for next year that will help working families across the state. But our North Star is always lowering costs, cutting taxes, and growing our economy." In our most recent budget proposal, the governor put forward a plan to repeal the retirement tax, end quote. And here's how it currently works. If you're filing single and you were born before 1946, you get a $54,000 income exemption, double that for married couples filing jointly. If you were born between 1946 and 1952, your first $20,000 is exempt for singles, double that for married couples. But if your birthday is after 1952, you're expected to pony up the full tax amount. So let's say your annual pension is paying you $25,000. The state income tax is 4.25%, meaning that you'd have to pay $1,062.50 on a tax bill in 2022. Its repeal is certainly welcome news.
Oh, that would be great. I would be happy about that.
Now, one of the intricacies in all of this is that if you're married, it's the older spouse's birth date that they look at to determine where on that tax ladder you fit. And as it stands right now, we don't know when or how soon the governor plans to go ahead with this, but we'll certainly be watching. Back to you.
We will. So, Rod, what about Social Security benefits and the state taxes that as well?
No, Michigan falls into that list of a very few number of states that do not tax Social Security benefits along with the federal government. They do.
I gotcha. Okay. Rod Maloney, we appreciate it.
A former Macomb County Boy Scout leader is sentenced to prison on sexual assault charges. Mark Chapman is going to spend at least 12 years in prison, has to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. As part of the plea deal, he pleaded guilty to sex assault charges. Chapman's accused of abusing 2 boys while he was a troop leader in Roseville more than 20 years ago. He also worked as a janitor at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Chapman is the first to be convicted in Michigan's ongoing investigation into the Boy Scouts of America.
Governor Whitmer signed an executive directive on abortion. The governor was joined in Lansing today by members of Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and Michigan Voices as she signed the order. It instructs state departments to review which aspects of reproductive rights might fall within their jurisdiction and prepare to provide the maximum protection possible for those rights. Proposal 3, which passed with nearly 57% of the vote in November, puts the right to an abortion in Michigan's Constitution. It takes effect Christmas Eve.
Today, we learned an aneurysm is what killed an American soccer journalist who died while covering the World Cup in Qatar.
49-year-old Grant Wall was covering the Argentina-Netherlands game Friday when he became sick and collapsed in the press box. He was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead. Initially, there were questions about Wall's sudden death because he had recently received threats in Qatar and was briefly detained for refusing to remove a T-shirt with a rainbow logo in support of LGBTQ rights.
Wall's brother, who is gay, feared some sort of foul play, but now an autopsy confirms Wall died from an aortic aneurysm. Dr. Frank McGeorge here with us now to explain more about what that is and maybe some of the warning signs here. But let's start with what an aortic aneurysm is.
Well, basically, an aneurysm implies that there is a dilation that's abnormal, a widening that occurs when the wall of a blood vessel is damaged. Now, sometimes it's genetic, sometimes it's from lifestyle factors like high blood pressure or smoking. Now, an aortic aneurysm specifically is when the dilation happens in the aorta, which of course is the large blood vessel that comes out of your heart and feeds blood to the entire rest of your body, critical vessel.
So is it something that happens quickly, very suddenly, or can a person have one for a long time and just not even know it?
Well, actually, generally, these are silent. They take a while to develop, and it's likely that this was growing over a long period of time, potentially years. The problem is, once they reach a critical size, the risk of them bursting or tearing internally, which is actually called a dissection, that goes way up. And a rupture or dissection, that can cause a sudden change. Now, sometimes that change is pain or another symptom, but sometimes it is immediately fatal.
Grant Wall, relatively young man, not yet 50 years old. Could this have been found earlier? Is that the kind of thing you could track down? Yeah.
Well, so aortic aneurysms or aneurysms in general are actually pretty rare. So we don't generally screen for them in young people that don't have a family history, especially if they don't have symptoms. Now, in older men who are smokers or have a family history of an abdominal aortic aneurysm, we more commonly do a screening ultrasound of the abdomen. But Grant Wall, he had an aneurysm in his chest. And that is not something that we screen for, although I should mention, sometimes we find them incidentally when we're doing a chest x-ray, for example. And if we do, that is something that needs to be followed up. But that would be very much just an incidental finding.
Right.
It's horrendous luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thanks, Doc.